For the next few minutes, we're going to talk about how to organize your speech. And again, as with the first video, there will be an accompanying PowerPoint. You should print this out and follow along with it, maybe make some notes to help you as you start to put together your first speeches. Now, when it comes to organizing your speech, the first thing that you do is develop your topic or select your topic. And how do you do that? Well, one of the main things you look for in selecting a topic is, what do you know? What are you good at? What are you interested in? Always try to talk on topics that you are interested in and have some knowledge of. That way you're going to be more comfortable. Also, once you get your topic selected, you are going to develop a central idea. What is the main thing about your topic that you want us to know? This is called your thesis statement. Once you develop your thesis statement, then you start to develop your main points, the main ideas that are going to go back, and as we will explain later in this video, will support your thesis statement. It will prove what your thesis statement is trying to say. And you will also develop subpoints. This is going to be more detailed information that will support your main points. Finally, once you have gotten the body of the speech together, which is basically your main points and subpoints, you are going to create your introduction and your conclusion. Always do the introduction and conclusion after the body of the speech is created. And as part of your introduction and conclusion, you are going to create an attention getter and a closing statement. We'll explain more about those in just a moment. Now, selecting the topic. To whom am I speaking? This is a question you're going to ask yourself first. Again, as we talked in the beginning speech video, who is the audience? Is it an older audience? Is it a younger audience? Is it a group of peers? Is it a professional group? You have to keep that in mind. To whom are you speaking? Because in many cases, these are the people that have invited you to speak, and they may have a particular topic they want to talk about, or a particular angle of a topic that you are an expert in, and they want you to address them. What is the occasion? Is it simply a toast at a wedding? Or is it the eulogy of your best friend's father? Or are you speaking at graduation? Or, what is the occasion? This also can help you with selecting the topic. Again, what are your strong topics? What do you know? What are you interested in? What can you offer some strong opinions or beliefs or research background to? And then, do you have adequate supporting material? Do you have access to it? Let's say you wanted to do a short informative speech about your hometown. Are there documents? Are there books? Are there pieces of information that you can get your hands on that are going to help you give more detail about your hometown? Or is your hometown a small town that has nothing available? That could be something that would also limit the topic to items that you can get your hands on good supporting information. And then finally, how much time do I have? If you're going to be talking about your hometown, and your hometown is Oklahoma City, then you may have to focus on one small area about Oklahoma City. Maybe one section of town, one piece of history that stands out, rather than try to tell the entire history of Oklahoma City. You may only have 4 or 5 minutes to talk, and Oklahoma City has a wide and rich history, and you're certainly not going to be able to cover all of it. So how much time do I have? That may help you select your topic as well. Developing your thesis statement. You've selected the topic. You know what you want to talk about. Now we've got to figure out that central idea, the thesis statement. So what is it that you want people to remember when the speech is over? This is going to be your main idea. And it needs to be a one-sentence statement. Very clear, strongly worded. And you're going to use this several times in the speech. First in the introduction, and then as well in the conclusion. And you may actually refer to it a couple of times during the speech to remind people, what is your main idea? What is your thesis? What is your central idea here? Let's talk about a couple of examples that we have here on the PowerPoint. First of all, this would be the first one on Benjamin Franklin. This would be an informative type speech. Ben Franklin, an intellectual genius whose accomplishments go far beyond his leadership in the founding of our country. Now, as I created this thesis statement, the idea of the speech would be that Ben Franklin had a lot more to offer. He created and did a lot more in his lifetime than merely be a statesman for this country. So we'll see in a moment how this downplays into the main points and the sub-points to create a complete speech about Ben Franklin. If you were doing a persuasive speech, the second thesis statement that I have here is that changes must be made in the management of air traffic control in order to avoid catastrophic incidents in the coming years. Now, what would be the main idea here? That we have to make changes in the management of air traffic control. Why? Well, because if we don't, there are going to be some major problems down the line. And, again, the speech, this would be what all of your information would refer back to. Now, we've got the thesis statement. Let's talk about preparing main points. First of all, you want to keep them separate. As you will see with the Ben Franklin example, I have two distinct ideas as to why Franklin was a genius that have nothing to do with his record as a statesman. So you try to keep your points separate. You try to use the same pattern of wording in both. You want to balance the amount of time. In other words, you want to be able to give both main points equal time in the speech. And bottom line, the main points will support or prove your thesis. All right, let's take a look again at this Ben Franklin example. We have our thesis statement here, and here are the two main points that I've created. What am I trying to say? First of all, that Ben Franklin is a genius that goes far, and his genius goes far beyond his abilities as a statesman. All right, first of all, main point one, Franklin was a talented writer. If you compare that to what my thesis statement says, then if I'm correct, and I've got plenty of evidence to prove this, then I have proven my thesis statement with these two main points. He was a writer. He was also a great inventor, the Thomas Edison of his day. Now let's develop some subpoints. And if you will look again at the thesis and main point one, my thesis is Franklin was a multi-talented intellectual genius. Main point one, Franklin's a talented writer. Now I'm getting more detailed. He authored Poor Richard's Almanac, and he wrote and published thousands of newspaper articles. Both of my subpoints support my main point. They prove that he was a talented writer, and my main point proves that he was an intellectual genius. This is how you progress through your main points into your subpoints, and again, tie it all together with your thesis statement. Now let's look at main point two. Again, we're talking about intellectual genius, and now Franklin's the Thomas Edison of his day. We get a little more detailed by saying Franklin discovered electricity. He also created bifocals and the Franklin stove. So again, my two subpoints prove that he was the Thomas Edison of his day, which goes back and proves that Franklin was the intellectual genius. So this is how, again, we progress through a speech, and we have a logical flow of information with different main points, subpoints to support them, and they all go back and support the thesis statement, which ties it all together and makes it a good, clear, easily flowing from topic to topic to topic speech. All right, when you're developing subpoints, remember your subpoints always support your main points, and each subpoint requires supporting evidence. So if we go back and look at those subpoints about the Thomas Edison of his day, Franklin discovered electricity. I'm going to have a newspaper article, a book, a piece of information from a book, a scholarly journal, something that's going to prove, or it's going to back up my claim that he discovered electricity. We can say, according to so-and-so's book that was written in the 1860s, Franklin did this, and that led to the discovery of electricity. So you have a piece of evidence that will support every single subpoint in your speech. So if you have 4 subpoints, you're going to have 4 pieces of evidence. And you can have more than one piece of evidence to go in each subpoint. Now, let's talk about speech organization. As you start to put your speeches together, there are different ways to do this. Chronological order, this would be, and we'll see an example of this in a moment, if you are putting together a speech that deals specifically with timelines. If we were talking about me, and if you were doing a biography speech on me, when I was a little boy I did this, when I was in college I did this, then as an adult I did this. I'm going from time period to time period to time period. That's chronological order. Spatial order. This deals with space. It could be talking about the way a room is laid out. It could be about a way a football stadium is laid out. It could be about regions of a country. That would be space. Topical order, that would be the Ben Franklin speech we just looked at a moment ago. We're not talking about the timelines at which Franklin accomplished these things, but just merely the fact that Franklin accomplished this, he accomplished this, he accomplished this. Causal order, that would be the air traffic control thesis statement I showed you a moment ago. We have a cause here, and this is going to be the result. Or we have a problem here, and it's causing this to happen. That's causal order. And then there's problem solution order. We have a problem, and here's how to solve it. We have potholes on the roads. This is my plan to fix that problem. That would be problem solution. All right, now here are some examples of an example of chronological. We're talking about building the Great Wall of China. It began during the Qin Dynasty. It was continued during the Han Dynasty. It was completed during the Ming Dynasty. 3 different time periods, and we're talking about them in order. That's chronological. Spatial. Northern Italy is home to Venice. We have central Italy is home to Rome, and then in southern Italy we have Sicily. We're talking about the space or different regions of the country of Italy. Topical order. As with the Franklin piece, we're talking again about a person who played a major role in our history in this country, and this person was a teacher, was a journalist, was a civic organizer. We're not talking about the time periods in which she did it, just the fact that she did this, she did this, she did this. The causal order, it shows a cause and effect relationship. We have a shortage of qualified air traffic controllers. That's the cause. If it continues, it's going to create a serious problem for airline safety. And then problem solution, here's a puppy mill story. This is the serious problem across the country. Now here's how we can solve this problem if we're willing to deal with it. To create your introduction, you want to develop an attention getter. This can be a short story, a lyric from a song, a short poem. It could be a quotation. It can be statistical information that grabs people's attention, shocks people. You will use this to start the speech. And when you do your first speeches, remember, you're not going to stand up here and say, hello, my name is so-and-so, and my topic today is this. No, you are going to start clean, cold, as I say in the broadcast industry. You're just going to start cold with your story, with your quotation, with your song lyric. Whatever is your attention getter, just start. And from there, you will go to your thesis. So whatever your attention getter is, it needs to tie to your thesis. So for example, if I was going to tell a story, the speech about Ben Franklin, I would probably start out with a story about a young boy who was being beaten by his friends while swimming, and he went home and he developed the first frog fins, like the flippers we use when we're scuba diving or snorkeling today. Well, that man was Ben Franklin, and Ben Franklin is an intellectual genius whose talents go far beyond his abilities as a statesman in this country. So that would be my attention getter going into my thesis. Then I'll want to insert an overview and say, so coming up in the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at some of the things that Franklin accomplished other than helping to found this country. That would be the overview. And we might say as well, we're going to talk about his abilities as a writer. We're going to talk about his abilities as an inventor. Now, let's start by talking about his abilities as a writer. Now we're ready to go into the body of the speech. With the conclusion, we're going to give a summary of the main points, and it would be something like, and so we've learned in the last few minutes about Ben Franklin. He was a very talented writer. He did this, he did this. He was also a very talented inventor. He created this and discovered this. So I've summarized. And so this proves once again that Ben Franklin was an extremely talented man, a genius, whose talents went far beyond or went right along with his abilities as a statesman. And then you will conclude with a strong statement. So, keeping this in mind, we should all pay attention to our abilities and try to maximize all the abilities that we have, much like Ben Franklin did. And that would be the way you would conclude your speech. Now finally, I want you to take a look at this sample outline. You can use this for every speech that you do in this class. I have it labeled narrative speech, but basically this is going to be the basic outline that you will use for every speech. And this is the way I want your outlines to look when you submit them to me. You will notice that everything is in single sentences. There are no one-word lines for main points or subpoints. You will create a sentence for your attention getter. Your thesis statement will be there, and the thesis statement again will show at the top of the page right under your name. It will be number 2 in the introduction, and it will show up as number 3 in the conclusion. The only final thing I would say is everything that I have there in parentheses, those are just labels for you, and I do not want to see those printed up on your outlines. So again, this is a look at how we organize a speech, and we will move on and look at getting your attention in our next video.